Security expert Jim Walsh is joining us now from Boston. Jim, welcome to the broadcast. Was this test launch intended to test more than the missile's capabilities?
Probably intended a little bit to test the new president in the United States and his reaction. We sort of have a very odd situation. I don't want to overemphasize this comparison, Susan, but in both Pyongyang and in Washington, we have leaders who are known for being brash and making bold statements and sometimes acting unexpectedly. In this case, it at least has the initial appearance that both North Korea and President Trump have responded in a more measured way, that this missile launch was not the ICBM launch test that Mr. Trump had lashed out against in January. And in Mr. Trump's response today, at least White House spokespeople talked to Reuters saying that they did not plan to escalate. So a little more measured rhetoric, a little more measured response. And so not only was this an attempt to improve a missile technology, it's probably also an attempt to test the waters between these two countries.
So is that the significance of the timing of it?
You got to think that, they probably had this missile test on the docket for a while. I'm sure they thought that they would get a little extra juice out of it if they did it when Abe and Trump were both together, calling it, giving it more attention, giving it more impact. But, you don't know. With North Korea, you never know. We don't have archives. We can't interview the officials. They won't tell us anyway. So a lot of this is guesswork.
All right, so these are direct violations of the UN resolutions. Does this warrant more action from the international community, in your view?
Well, I mean, each time there's a new resolution passed, it's the strongest ever resolution passed. And while I see the political value in doing that, at some point we've got to ask ourselves, maybe we should do something differently, because we do the same thing over and over again, and it never seems to work. So, yeah, let's have a UN Security Council resolution, whatever. But I think we need to think about this in different ways, or we're just going to keep getting the same result over and over. And here is one advantage to President Trump being newly elected president. North Korean officials have said on occasion that they weren't going to deal with the Obama administration, and that they would turn the page and be open to talking to the Trump administration, depending on how they behaved. So, obviously that would be a difficult conversation, but Mr. Trump is the negotiator in chief. And so perhaps there's a small window here, an opportunity where you can sort of turn the page and both countries can begin, not immediately, but after preparation, begin to sit down and have some discussions about what might be possible. I would hope one possibility would be an arrangement to freeze North Korea's nuclear and missile program, so at least they're not progressing. If we could get a freeze and buy some time, that might create possibilities for further reductions later. But, that window isn't going to stay open forever, and if this thing starts to escalate, it'll probably get away from them. But right now, both the U.S. and North Korea seem to be stepping gingerly.
How likely is it, in your estimation, that Kim Jongun would test launch a missile capable of reaching the U.S.? Well,
I'm somewhat frustrated by this general conversation. You hear a lot about it in the media, and I'm glad you asked me about it. There seems to be a myopic focus in the U.S. on ICBMs. When is North Korea going to have a missile that can hit the U.S. homeland? And it seems to me that both underestimates the threat and overestimates the threat at the same time, miraculously. It overstates it because in my professional judgment, it's going to be a long time before North Korea can build an ICBM. People have been saying this was going to happen for a long time. They said it was going to happen in 2015. It didn't happen in 2015. This is the most challenging technical feat that the North Koreans will have taken on, far different than the stuff that they're doing right now. So in some ways, we're overestimating it because we think it's right around the corner. In other ways, we're underestimating it. We're sort of saying, well, that's the definition of what a threat is. No, it's not. Right now, we have tens of thousands of U.S. forces in South Korea, thousands of U.S. soldiers in Japan. Those people are threatened by North Korea's nuclear program. If they were to use nuclear weapons, that would be an attack upon the United States. So this threat isn't in the distance. It's right here, but it's in the region for the countries in the region, including China. And it should be, we don't have to wait for it to be more serious before we get serious about doing something about it.
Jim Walsh, thank you for joining us from Boston.